Welcome to the Immigration Therapist Podcast, a podcast for immigration attorneys and therapists that want to know more and learn more about immigration evaluations. So, on today's topic, we are talking about all kinds of immigration evaluations. So there are many types of immigration evaluations, and obviously, this is coming from a therapist. Who has a lot of experience with immigration evaluations. And I'm going to talk about my experience with all the immigration evaluations I've done. So, and I wrote this down so I don't get it wrong. But there are several kinds, and I will list them now. So there's VAWA, which is Violence Against Women's Act, also known as domestic violence evaluations. There's asylum, hardship, UNT visa, so those are two, so U visa and T visa, special immigrant, fiancé visa, and cancellation of removal. So, as I've explained in a previous episode, immigration evaluations have the purpose of making a case stronger. Attorneys will typically ask clients to obtain an immigration evaluation to have their case stronger, either because the attorney wants to understand the case, the person's situation more in depth, so that they can build on the symptoms, the diagnosis, the background, for the judge to understand the situation, for the immigration official to understand the situation, the psychological aspects and emotional aspects of the case. So I will briefly talk about each kind, just again from my experience, from my perspective as an immigration therapist. So the first kind, which is a VAWA evaluation, again, a domestic violence evaluation. This usually has to do with the spouse of a citizen or even a child of a citizen, a resident or citizen person who instills emotional and psychological abuse on the applicant, meaning the immigrant. This can be, even though the name is a little deceiving, which is VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act, it can also be towards men. I've done plenty of immigrations of men, victims of domestic violence. As therapists, we know that men, there are lower numbers of men that report domestic violence because of the stigma involved. So, but it's a thing, it happens. I would say that about 25% of my VAWA clients are men, have been males. So again, VAWA are cases where the citizen or the resident, spouse or child of an immigrant instills emotional or psychological abuse, or even sometimes, beyond that, unfortunately, sexual, physical abuse onto the immigrant, meaning their parent or their spouse. Then there's asylum. Asylum is when a immigrant is seeking asylum, refuge in this country because they're escaping something in their country. And when you look at the asylum form, when you Google it and you look at the asylum form, there's a few different categories for asylum. So there's political asylum, there's reasons for, so like I said, political involvement, religion, opinion as well, sexual orientation. So all of those are reasons for asylum, reasons why people seek refuge in the United States. Third one is hardship. This is not the name of the case. The name of the case that require hardship evaluations is called a waiver case. And again, I'm not an immigration attorney, so I couldn't even speak about the immigration aspects, the legal aspects of this kind of evaluation. But again, these have to do with waiver cases. They typically have to do with an immigrant that committed some kind of crime, either because they entered the United States through the border or they've been deported before, or things like that. Um, but a hardship case has to do with the reasons why a child, citizen, or a spouse of the applicant, meaning of the immigrant, the reasons why they can't be separated from the immigrant. So, for example, a child may talk about why they need their mom here because their mom is they're doing a waiver case, for example. Next case is a U visa. So a U visa has to do with an immigrant that was a victim of a crime in the United States, and we talk about that, how they were impacted by the crime, what kind of participation they had as far as being compliant with the investigation and things like that. A T visa has to do with human trafficking. It has to do with either trafficking as far as sexual reasons, human trafficking for sexual reasons, or labor. They were taken advantage of, they were enslaved when it comes to work. So we talk about all the emotional, psychological effects of that. Um, what do I have next? Oh, so special immigrant. So special immigrant Department of Justice evaluations. These are kind of complex because, from my understanding, these entail all sorts of cases. They can entail all sorts of cases. The ones I have done have to do with a minor who crossed the border as a minor, obviously, and I talked about that. You know, them being a minor, and they crossed into the country on their own. They had family members here in this country, so the evaluation was about that. The fact that why they needed to cross into the country and why they crossed alone. So that was the case that I did. An example of a case that I did for a special immigrant. Then there's fiancé visa. So the evaluations regarding fiancé visas that I did had to do with a citizen that applied for their spouse, or meaning their not married spouse, but their partner that are left in their country. They're awaiting the paperwork needed to come to this country legally, and they're applying for a fiancé visa. And it takes a while. So the immigrations I've done in regards to that have been with actually the citizen as well. Um, and we talked about the reasons why they needed their fiancé here quickly. And after fiancé visa, there's a cancellation of removal. I love cancellation of removal cases. I love them. I love all kinds of evaluations, but cancellation of removals are usually, they're really for the trauma therapists out there, trauma focused therapists out there. This is where excuse my language, but this is where the good stuff is. Cancellation of removal, all evaluations have an urgency aspect to them, but cancellation of removal truly have an urgency tone to them because the immigrant is facing deportation. Usually they have a hearing already scheduled or not. Some of the other cases also do, like for example, asylum. But cancellation of removal, there's imminent danger of being deported at any moment. So I've done cancellation of removals where I actually went into detention centers to interview the person there and assess the person there. I mean, that's a whole nother episode that I'll need to do about that because it's there's different aspects to actually doing an evaluation in your office, or through teletherapy with the client. There's, you have privacy, you have the luxury of having your laptop right there. So, and that's not the case with when you go into a detention center. But anyways, cancellation of removal cases are pretty urgent. The attorney will need evaluation for like yesterday. And these cases, you may interview everybody in the family because it's about stopping the deportation of the immigrant. So For example, there was a family that I did a cancellation of removal for. It was 5 people. It was 4 kids. Um, there were 4 kids, and I did it for the wife as well, actually. So these are the kinds of evaluations that are out there. I'm sure there are other types of evaluations, but these are the kinds that I have done. Again, evaluations, the purpose of evaluations are to create, to make the case stronger for the attorney, for the judge, for the immigration officer. And it's just to give them better understanding of the psychological and emotional aspects of the case. So who knows? I'm sure there are other scenarios where attorneys may ask for an evaluation. But from my experience, since I've started, which feels like a million years ago actually, these have been the kinds of evaluations that I've done and I've heard of. So, as usual, you can find me on Instagram or on our social, media presence through our website, Center for Immigration's Evaluations.com, or my Instagram, which I have it right in front of me, so I don't get it wrong. Immigrations_evaluations_center. That's immigration without an S _evaluations_center. See you in the next one.